Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Good evening, members. I'll take you to item 3.1. This is the corporate health and safety policy for the council. The decision tonight, members recommend that members approve the revised corporate health and safety policy. It really has been subject to just some small administrative amendments, but it does set out the organisational structure and arrangements for the implementation of health and safety across the organisation, and I recommend the draft to you members for approval.
Thank you, Gillian. Have we any questions? Alderman Mitri.
Thank you, Chair. No questions, just happy to propose.
Can I have a seconder for that? Councillor Brian Pope. Thank you, Councillor.
Yes, happy to second.
All right. Can we move on to item number 3.2? Gillian.
Thank you, Chair. Members, this is the Environmental Health Department's Quality Management Policy. Our service is accredited to ISO 9001, and this policy sets out the framework for our quality objectives, and we review it on a regular basis, particularly ahead of the next audit, which is in mid-September. So members, I recommend this policy to you, ask you to approve the revised departmental policy as set out in your appendix.
Thank you, Gillian. And can I have a proposer and a seconder, please? Alderman Mitri and a seconder. Councillor McElrath, thank you. And can we move on to item number 3.3? And again, I'll hand over to Gillian for this one.
Thank you, Chair. Members, bring before you a consultation response in relation to the food hygiene rating online display regulations. The consultation document has been issued by the Food Standards Agency, and this additional regulation will add to the current regulations on the food hygiene rating scheme. It is designed to deal with online sales, so that consumers buying and purchasing food online will be able to see and better understand the rating of the premises from which they are buying. Members, our officers have gone through and have produced a fairly comprehensive reply to the consultation document. In terms of our resources to deliver this, we have been provided with some additional funding from the Food Standards Agency within our annual funding budget in order to take forward this work. And so members, I recommend to you the draft consultation response set out at Appendix 3.
Thank you, Gillian. And again, I need a proposer and a seconder for that item. I don't see any hands. Thank you, Councillor McElrath, and seconder. Councillor Hawhin.
Yeah, I'm happy to second, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hawhin. And can we move on to item 3.5 again, Gillian?
There, I'm going to take 3.4, the food service plan for 2022-23. Members, the decision required is to review and approve the draft service plan for 22-23. The Food Standards Agency require each council to provide a very detailed food service plan, which must be published. And our service plan for 22-23 does include much reference to recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic and recovery into the food safety functions. So we set out what our aims and objectives are, our profile, how we deliver the service and the resources required. Also, members, you'll be aware that within our own business plan reporting cycle, you will receive information on how we are progressing with the delivery of the plan. And so, members, I would ask that you review and approve the draft plan as set out for you at Appendix 4.
Thank you, Gillian. And again, I'm asking for a proposer and a seconder. Councillor McClellan. Thank you for proposing. Can we have a seconder? Councillor Macaulay.
Yes, Chair, happy to second. Thanks.
Thank you very much indeed. And can I move on to the next item? Gillian, 3.5.
Thank you, Chair. This item 3.5 is to do with a legislative order made by Council. It is the Dogs Exclusion Number 1, Armagh City, Banbridge and Craigavon Borough Council order that was made by Council in 2017. It relates to the exclusion of dogs from a play area within the borough with the aim of preventing dog fouling within those play areas. In 2017, we had a schedule to that order. It requires to be updated given that there have been some changes to the provision of play parks and also some closures. Members, we've sought legal advice from our legal team in relation to this matter, and the process before you tonight, members, is that you're asked to approve a revised schedule to the dogs exclusion order, which lists the list of the borough's play areas which are subject to the order, and this new schedule will take effect from the 1st of November 2022, and that revised schedule is set out at Appendix 7, and the updated play parks are included therein. Thank you.
Thank you, Gillian. We've a couple of hands up here, maybe 3. Councillor Hawhan.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd be interested to hear other members' view. I was quite happy that this, I know it's a procedural issue more than anything else. I'm quite happy for this to be done, but I was going to make a suggestion that we do some social media around this at the appropriate time, maybe leading up to when it actually comes in to take effect, just as a reminder, I suppose, for dog owners and people in the area that this is actually an offence. I know in 3.5.2 you actually detailed it's not a huge issue. You know, over the years there has only been, I think, 15 complaints in 5 years and only 1 formal enforcement. But I think it goes some way to reassuring the public that we do take kind of, I'm going to use this phrase reluctantly, but, you know, dog nuisance in some areas it can be unwelcome. So look, I'm happy to propose this, and just to say I would suggest or make I would encourage the council at the appropriate time to maybe do some social media and some public sort of awareness around this. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hawhan. Gillian, do you want to come back in on that, please?
Yes, absolutely fine. Absolutely accept that suggestion from the members, and will, of course, will action that appropriately.
Thanks, Gillian. Councillor Pope, please.
Thank you, Chair. And yeah, no, I'm happy to second that, but with one small amendment. Just in Appendix 5, B47, Solitude Park. All the other parks are listed as play parks. However, so there's maybe a typo in there. It says Solitude Park, which would mean the exclusion of all dogs in the overall park. So if Gillian could maybe clarify that, but happy to second on with that small amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pope. Gillian?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor, for bringing that to my attention. I will ensure that we have that correctly. I think on Appendix 7, just very quickly looking at this, this is the revised schedule. If I go down to number 85, it says Solitude Play Park, Rathrilling Street, Banbridge, excluding the public paths. So I think in the actual schedule at Appendix 7, hopefully that is accurate. Councillor, let me know if that's not what you're looking at or saying, but I think when I see that in Appendix 7, that's the document I would be referring to.
Thank you, Gillian. Happy enough with that, Councillor Pope?
Yes, Chair, no, absolutely. I was looking at Appendix 5, but Gillian's correct for Appendix 7. No, I'm happy with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pope. Councillor McIlrath?
Thank you, Chair. Listen, no issue whatsoever, Chair, with the report and support it fully, but just something that it did come to my attention over the last. We're digressing slightly, but it's our policy in relation to the number of dogs that are off leads in some of our parks, and particularly relating to Gosford Park, where I've had a couple of complaints about dogs off leads. And I have a huge number of people using that park, lots of children. It was actually from a dog owner and a dog walker that reported this to me. So I'm just wondering, in terms of our policy, in terms of enforcement in the park, I know things are not normal at the minute, but when they do, could we maybe look at that again, revisit it, and maybe see if we can maybe bring some enforcement to that? It's just a general point when I see this on the agenda tonight, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McIlrath. Gillian, do you want to come back in again on that one?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Councillor, for raising that. That's absolutely fine. We know that those issues can be raised periodically across a number of our parks and open spaces. And we do have some bylaws and various legislative tools we can use there. And again, the staff in Gosford are very positive in terms of how they engage with customers, and appreciate we're in a difficult space at the moment for that. But we'll certainly liaise with the staff there and ensure that we understand what the controls are and publicise that accordingly.
Thank you, Gillian. Councillor Hawking, you looking back in?
Yeah, thanks for bringing me back in. Yeah, look, it's interesting that that's been raised. It is slightly off topic, but over the years, I probably tortured Gillian and our officers enough about this. And my understanding was under the legislation that if a dog, to call a dog under the control of its owner may not just mean on a lead. It can actually mean that if you called it, it will return to you. So it's about interpretation of the legislation, and it is kind of a bit of a grey area. So probably, well, enforcement would be fantastic, but I think education as well, and again, a bit of social media around what that actually means. I think a lot of people in the borough still don't really understand what it means. So then they believe that there's possibly a bylaw being broken when there isn't necessarily. So maybe in the future we could do a wee bit more education around the public on that matter and what the legislation actually means. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hawking. Gillian, do you want to come back again?
Absolutely, and thank you, Councillor Hawking. You're absolutely right. There are different nuances in what it means to have a dog under control, and it can be difficult just to have a blanket message. But certainly, we absolutely take your point. We will pick that up and look back at our social media messages that we have put out in the past for this, and what's appropriate in each of the open spaces. So thank you for raising that.
Thank you very much, Gillian. And I'll hand back again to yourself for 3.6 service level agreement, portable warm steam.
Thank you, Chair. Yes. This 3.6 members, it relates to the Affordable Warmth Scheme, which is a funded scheme by the Department for Communities, working in partnership with the Housing Executive and local councils. I have given you some background there to the scheme members, and this is a scheme which, in order to sustain it, we entered into a shared service model with Newry Morning Down District Council, and they deliver the service with the funding for our borough. And members have brought forward just a revised SLA. There have been no major revisions. It updates it for the current year. And members, you will see there the service that is delivered on our part by Newry Morning Down. Members, we will have discussed this at various occasions at much greater length. And in fact, I think the last time we discussed it, we had the officials from DFC with it. I know it is an important scheme for households in our borough who need to access energy efficiency measures or emergency measures for heating. And certainly it's a very important scheme, especially at this point in time. But you will understand that funding is limited, and therefore that really restricts the number of homes that can be referred into the scheme and the criteria that is used to refer those homes in. Members, I believe the scheme is always under review by DFC as to the best way to deliver it with the budget that is available. But the subject tonight really, members, is to bring the draft service level agreement to you and to have that signed for the delivery of this shared service. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Gillian. Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Chair, and can I thank Gillian as well for the report. Gillian's totally right. It's such an important and invaluable scheme. It was important pre the cost of living crisis, and it's now become crucial for many people to keep warm, the insulation and the different pieces of work that you can get done through the scheme. My concern, I suppose, is just around the admin of the scheme. And I raised this with the Housing Executive when they were in last week. It is a fantastic scheme, but at times there are resource issues with the team that are feeding back, that are delivering it, etc. And I find that a wee bit too whenever we're dealing with the Newry side of officers. We don't know them. We don't have a relationship with them. It's very hard to therefore hold them to account. So, I mean, I've no problem proposing the recommendation in the report, but Chair, can I ask that the Newry officers are made available to councillors monthly, bi-monthly, whatever the need is, particularly as we move into this cost of living crisis and more people are in touch looking for assistance with this kind of stuff, because it can be very frustrating as an elected rep when you refer someone on and there's radio silence at the other end.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Councillor McGrath. Or, go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Absolutely no issue seconding the report, and thank you, Gillian. I suppose just one wee question. I'm looking at the figures there, and 26,400 to date. We're rightly into this financial year. Are we looking? Do we know, Gillian, if we have the 79,000 allocated this year? Is that the funding as same as previous years? Because as the previous speakers said, we're, if there's one winter where we need some of this funding, it will be this winter. And this is really, really important. And I do agree with Councillor Nelson. It would be really good if we could have more accessibility to the people in Newry, because I know from my perspective, you've no sooner made a contact and then that person seems to have moved and you're kind of chasing your tail with the officer. So it would be good to have a better rapport, and maybe it identified, seeing it sits outside of our own council officers and staff, But it is a brilliant scheme. It could just maybe be tweaked a wee bit from the elected reps' point of view. But yeah, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McIlrath. Gillian, I want to bring you back in again there, maybe to comment on Councillor Nelson. Apologies, Councillor Nelson, on that.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to take both councillors' comments and deal with them at this point. So, Councillor Nelson, yes, we have access to the Newry officers. It does overlap with Councillor McIlrath's. These are funded posts, and I think this is where we've had challenges ourselves around maintaining staff in the posts, and therefore you may well, find a name and then that person does move on because they're funded posts. But I will seek to make sure that we have a named contact within that. I know I have liaison with them on a quarterly basis because their performance feeds into our own business plan. So when we bring back our own business plan reports on the 6 monthly basis, the affordable warmth is within that plan, but probably not at the detail that you're seeing here. So we do maintain, our targets being met. One of the other challenges is around the funding and the pinch points, shall we say, in this. The pinch point really is around the volume and the number of applicants that the housing executive can take in through the scheme, through the work that council officers do on the ground to source the people, or through critical emergency cases. And that's what dictates the pace of what can enter into the scheme. And that's why it says there the number of referrals permitted to the housing executive. That is really based on funding. It is dictated to us by DFC around what we can send in. And you will see there it is 20 per month from now on. That is a much reduced number for the scheme across this borough and indeed across all of Northern Ireland. And that is solely, in my understanding, around the volume that the housing executive can process within the funding that's available. Yes, it is something which we recognise is very important, and really it is a matter through DFC should they release more funding for the housing executive to have increased capacity.
Thank you, Gillian. Councillor Hawhin, you had your hand up. Do you still wish to come back in?
No, I'm happy enough, Chair, that Gillian has clarified that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawhin. Thank you, Gillian, for that. We move on to agenda item 4, environmental services report, and I'll hand over to Barry, please.
Evening, Chair, evening members. 4.1, conservation of wetland along South Lough Neagh shoreline. Members will recognise the importance of covered bogs that we have in relation to carbon sinks, and also the carbon that is brought in via the plants, and then obviously the habitat that's involved in that as well. And we would endeavour to protect that and regenerate it. Funding was applied to DAERA in the region of £54,700 to carry out remediation work. And 4.1.2, it goes through what that work is. It's removal of invasive species. It's removal of scrub from pools that are within Bracken Bog. And then it's working with the monitoring of breeding birds and nesting birds along the River Blackwater. Very valuable. Will involve volunteers as well as council staff and contractors. There is no financial burden on council. The match funding that we would be facilitating is via the volunteers and through council staff. So members are asked to accept the letter of offer from DAERA and note that there's no financial contribution is required. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Barry, for the report. Councillor Thomas.
Thanks, Chair. Well, I'm just I'm happy to propose the recommendation. I do have a question, boy. It's probably just digressing a wee bit, but it's on the same kind of topic in relation to wetlands. I know the NIEA is responsible for reporting waste crime to them, but just what is council's responsibility in relation to waste crime? I just have some particular cases that I have been dealing with in the past where there is damage to wetlands and wildlife, particularly along the southern shores. So just what's the council's responsibility? Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Toman. I'll bring Barry back in again.
Yeah, that would fall to NIEA. So any of that sort of stuff on private land, whether that's to do with bogs or not, that would be NIEA would have to investigate that, and they should process that through their systems.
Thank you, Barry. So Councillor Toman proposed that. We need a seconder for that. Yes, Councillor McClellan, thank you very much indeed. And we'll move on to item 4.2.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Information item.
Yes.
It's really to update members on the planting of trees for the Queen's Jubilee. So it lays out there the detail about photographs being taken, about where the trees are going to be given out, etc., etc. Certainly one thing to point out is that the trees that will be given out at the recycling centres, people can drop along, they can lift a tree pack, they can bring those home and plant them themselves. Obviously, as part of the scheme, we would encourage people to register that, and therefore there would be a little dot where that tree was planted, but there's no physical requirement for that. So if people don't wish to do that side of it, they don't have to. So that's just for information item, really, members. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. And I'll hand you over for the next one then, 4.3.
4.3, members, you will remember that we were asked to bring back some information about radar keys and the possibility of community groups or schools using those. It's laid out here in front of you. There is no particular reason why we can't facilitate this, but officers would just point out that the more people using any particular toilet, the more likely it is not to be clean when, or clean on the standard that we would expect or would like when someone who had, for example, a disability would use that. You also, with having more people in, there's a higher chance that that will be vandalised. So it's really just to bring that report back to members for any sort of consideration, but it was just an information item unless members want to do something else with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry, for that. Councillor Flaherty, see if your hand raised.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair, and apologies that I'm on Zoom. I'm having real difficulties here this evening, but I just wanted to comment on this because I brought this as an item, and I want to thank Barry and the team because you've put a lot of work into this, and it's great to have it all collated there. And look, you and I have spoken at length about this, and a number of other officers and I have spoken at length about this, and thanks for that. Look, Barry, I fully understand that this is a national UK-wide scheme. The radar scheme was developed to, as you said, to prevent vandalism and damage and misuse of these very important accessible public toilet facilities, to increase the amount of these facilities that are available in a clean and functional state, and that must always be remembered. And I really do appreciate that. People that use them appreciate it, and only need them when they really have to. This council itself, in its disability duties and action plan, makes it very, very clear that we need to promote positive attitudes towards disabled people and to encourage participation. We're very lucky. Now, I know some of you will know there's issues I have with some of the parks, and we'll work on some of the things, but I've said it to a number of people, I've said it to you officers, we are doing very well in this score. We're really punching above our weight compared to other councils, and I'm very proud of the council for that. But given that we have, and again, I'm very proud of this. This is really, I'm delighted about this, and I know it's taken a bit of time, but it needs to be right. We've got 3 fully accessible changing places toilets coming online, coming into use very, very soon in Lurgan Park and Gosford. And the problem in Portdown People's Park is being sorted out. I'm delighted with that. And thank you so much, Graham Crozier, for doing that. But can I just suggest one thing, Barry? See, when the time is right, and I mean when the time is right, you know what I mean by that, that suitable messaging and communication is conveyed to the rest, because there is a section on our website about what accessible facilities we have and how much good work we do and how many facilities we have. But I'm not so sure maybe that people know exactly the criteria and how we go about getting this. So if, well, as I say, when the time is right, can we just have a wee chat about that so that people know how to avail of a radar key from the council, how much it costs, not even going to go down that rabbit hole. So as many people as possible with as many conditions and whatever way you want to put it, can get out and about and use some of the great facilities that we do have and that we should be very proud of. That's but thanks very much for this, Barry, and thanks for taking it on board. You do a good job in this regard.
We'll come back in there, Barry.
Just to say, Chair, I'm very happy to increase the comms about the accessibility on the website, etc. That's a very good idea. We'll do that, certainly.
Thank you, Barry, and thank you, Councillor Flaherty. Councillor McCauley, yeah, your hand raised.
No, it's okay, Chair. I just did that by mistake. Sorry, working on a phone.
That's fine. That's fine. That's okay. And thank you for all that report. And can I move on to item 4.4, another information? Barry.
Thank you, Chair. Short and sweet. This is really just to say we haven't forgot about this, and it did happen. So members had asked that we would do a survey about allotment provision. So that happened in July and August. Those the information that we've got back so far is there's 309 respondents by close. We will now be working through that information to see if there's any particular areas that are standing out more than others. And we will bring a further report back when we have analysed that. But it's just to let members know we haven't forgot about it, and it did happen, and we'll bring a further report back. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Barry. Right, at this part of the meeting now, I'm seeking a proposal and a seconder to go into committee for consideration of the confidential items of business. Councillor McClellan proposing, Councillor Alban Baxter seconding. Members and online viewers, in accordance with the Schedule 6 of the Local Government Act, we will now be moving into confidential session of the Council. This means that we will be turning off the public feed of the meeting. This will be returned when the meeting is restarted. And can I ask ACT officers to please turn off the feed and confirm with me when the confidential section of this meeting can proceed? Thank you. Item number 6, correspondence. I don't think there are no items of correspondence, and there's also no any other business. So I would conclude the meeting, and thank you all for turning up, and those on Zoom as well. So take care, everyone. Have a good evening. Good night, all.